I'm making a ghoti deck profile. I was playing around with this deck and realized, other than Kashtira, it has a pretty decent matchup against most things. I figured why not make an update for my ghoti deck profile since I haven't done one for a while. And I did change up the deck quite a bit. For the monsters, I play 3 copies. Paces, Light of the Ghoti. Paces has the effect of you can during your main phase you contribute it to then special summon a fish monster from your hand, and then you tribute it. You can banish it to summon a fish from hand. And during the standby phase, in the next standby phase after it was banished, you can activate its effect to summon itself. And then during the main phase, during your opponent's turn, if it's summoned by its own effect, you can special summon I cannot talk today. You can activate its effect so that during your opponent's turn, quick effect, you can synchro summon using this monster you control. And then you can only use each effect of Pace's Light of the Ghoti once per turn. Then I play 3 copies of Shift, Fairy of the Ghoti. Shift, Fairy of the Ghoti has the effect of, if this card's in your graveyard, you can banish it to then have target a fish monster you control and have it gain 500 attack. And it also has the same effect as Pace's, where if it's banished during the next standby phase after it's banished, summon it. If it was on your opponent's turn, you can quick effect, activate its effect to then synchro summon using this monster you control. Then I play 2 copies of Zep, Ruby of the Ghoti. And then Zep's effect is you can banish this card from your hand, target a fish in your grave, banish it. And then during your opponent's turn, if this card is banished, you can special summon this card, especially in this way, except in a damage step. Immediately after this effect resolves, synchro summon 1 fish synchro monster using this card you control. You can only use each effect of Zep, Ruby of the Ghoti once per turn. Zep's a 2-love because it's not the best thing to have, because it has to be banished on your opponent's turn specifically, which there are ways of doing that. The main one on your turn would be used by using Arion Post, Serpent of the Ghoti. But it is still useful to have, and I don't think 1's enough, and I feel like 3 is too many, so I'm going to try 2. Then, as an extender, I play 3 copies of Silent Sea Nettle. Silent Sea Nettle is a free summon from your hand. However, it locks you into water, which, as long as I'm remembering correctly, everything in the extra deck is water. Yes, so it locking you into water doesn't really hurt you at all. And that has another effect while it's in the graveyard, should it somehow end up in the grave, that you can banish it and then target 3 water monsters in your grave, shuffle them into the deck. So I just like it because it's a free body that also recycles your resources. Then I play 3 Igzeep, Omen of the Ghoti. Igzeep is a free body if a fish monster is banished, except during the damage step. And then during the standby phase of the next turn after this card is banished, you can target one of your Ghoti traps that is banished from your graveyard, set the target. That effect doesn't really come up that much, but every once in a while it does come up, and when it does, it's hilarious. Then I play 2 copies of Lifeless Leaf Fish. I'm only playing 2 at the moment because I currently only have 2, or at least I can't find the 3rd. But I will go over what I would take out for the 3rd when I get to it, which there are 2 cards I would reduce to 1, depending on which one I feel like I want more. But Lifeless Leaf Fish has the effect of, when it's normal summoned, you can send a fish from your deck to the graveyard. Which way you can do with this is you can have normal this, send Shift. Shift banishes itself to target the Lifeless Leaf Fish, to then have it gain an additional 500 until the end of the turn. And then you can, during your standby, Shift comes back. Shift can tune it with the Lifeless Leaf Fish. Then you can make Arion Post. Arion Post banishes Zep. Zep summons itself, and then you tune it with Arion Post for a level 8 synchro. So just this card already sets up a way for you to summon a level 8 water synchro on your opponent's turn. And then Lifeless Leaf Fish also has the grave effect. You can banish it to then target, 3 fish monsters? You can target 3 fish in your graveyard, shuffle them into the deck, and then draw 1 card. And you can only use each effect of Lifeless Leaf Fish once per turn. And the only downside of this is that Lifeless Leaf Fish cannot send another copy of itself. Then one of the cards I would reduce to 1 for the 3rd Lifeless Leaf Fish is one of the 2 copies of Enoch, Sentry of the Ghoti. And Enoch's effect is if it's normal or special summoned, you can target one of your banished level 4 lower fish monsters and special summon it in defense, but negates effects. And then you can banish 1 fish monster from your hand or face-up field to add a Ghoti trap from your deck to your hand. You can use each effect of Enoch, Sentry of the Ghoti once per turn. The main reason for this is because Enoch is a level 6, and it's not the easiest to summon, but it is searchable, which is why I would say I would reduce it to 1. The only 2 cards would be either 1 Enoch or one of the traps, since Enoch can add a banished trap or Ghoti trap from banished or deck to hand. But it's still level 6, which makes some of the bigger synchros a little easier to summon. Another one I like that is a 2 of, which I might put to 3 by taking out a Schiff, since Schiff isn't that good in hand anyway, is 2 copies of Snopios, Shade of the Ghoti. Snopios, I don't remember honestly, has the effect of during your main phase, quick effect, you can banish 2 fish monsters from your hand and or graveyard to special summon it. And this card special summon, you can target 1 face-up card in the field, banish it when it leaves the field. If this card is banished, you can banish 1 fish monster from your graveyard to add this to your hand. You can use each effect of Snopios once per turn. I just like it because you can target a thing, and if it dies, then you can just banish that card instead of sending it to the graveyard, as well as being a very easy level 6 monster to summon that also lets you summon a level 8 or 10 synchro, depending on how many of the tuners you banish. And to finish off the monsters, I play 3 copies of Dimension Shifter. This just has the effect of while you have no cards in grave, you can discard it to then make it so that any cards into a graveyard is removed from play instead, until the end of your opponent's next turn. Like I said, this would be one of 3 cards that I'd be sided out against Kashtira specifically, which what I would probably side in would probably be a playset in Nibiru, since Nibiru is much better against Kashtira and much easier to deal with as well. And then something like an Arise Heart, which I did find out the hard way. If you do a Nibiru and a Kashtira player, wait until they summon Arise Heart, then Nibiru, because they can still make an Arise Heart if they use Shengra Ear as effect, which if America actually has an unsummon effect, I think. I don't remember. Anyway, that's it for the monsters. Moving on for the spells, I play 3 copies of the most deepest depths. This has the effect of while you control a fish synchro monster, its card cannot be destroyed or banished by card effects, which if you summon the big boss monster, this will be protected even though it gets rid of everything else. You can only use each of the following effects of the most distant deepest depths once per turn. You can banish a fish monster from your hand or graveyard to add a Ghoti monster from your deck to your hand, and if a fish monster is normal or special summoned to your field, while its cards in the graveyard, you can target 1 fish monster you control, banish it to add this card back to your hand. The main thing is you can banish one of your tuners, search something like Igzeep Igzeep's one thing of. And then, because you banish a fish, Igzeep will be able to summon itself. But this is a decent card because it can search some of your 2-ofs or 1-ofs. And I really like this deck because of how much it can just recur its stuff when banished, just like Mutant, which I do plan on doing an updated Mutant Ghoti deck profile as well. Then, because Ghoti don't care if their stuff gets banished, I also play 3 copies of Dimensional Fissure. Dimensional Fissure just says any monster sent to their grave is removed from play instead. Simple. And then as a little tech card for my 42 card deck, I do play 2 copies of Soul Absorption. If a card or cards is banished, I gain 500 life points for each card banished. This is definitely a fun card to activate if you're going first and you know you can banish a lot in game 3. As unfortunate as that is, even though I do still prefer the turns for time rules instead of phase. And then for the one-ofs, I play one copy of Gold Sarcophagus. It just banishes a monster from your deck. And then during your second standby phase, after the card is banished by this effect, you add it back to your hand. But that never matters because usually you're going to be banishing a Paces or a Shift. Or you're just going to banish a card you actually want that, and you think you can actually survive that long enough for that to work. Or your opponent will survive long enough. Either way. Then I play one copy of Called by the Grave. Just in case, or just for if you get ashed, because I've been ashed a lot whenever I summon Lifeless Leaffish, because people tend to know, or at least the people I play against tend to know how this deck works, so they know hand trap whatever you normal summon, and you're probably going to be done for a while. So Called by the Grave is good, and I still think it'd be great if it was at 3. Then I can play my Sacred Beast deck and not to worry about constantly being hand trapped or stopping by a single hand trap as much. Moving on to the traps, I play 2 copies of Ghoti Chain, 2 copies of Ghoti Cosmos, and 2 copies of Ghoti Fury. Ghoti Chain has the effect of you can banish a face-up fish monster you control, especially on one of your Ghoti monsters that is banished or in your hand, deck, or graveyard with a different original name from that monster, or from the banished monster to activate this card, but banish it loses a field. So what you can do with this is you can summon something like Lifeless Leaffish, and if its effects are negated, you can set Ghoti Chain, activate it, banish Leaffish, summon Enoch. Enoch summons back Leaffish, and then Enoch can then, if it survives, can actually just banish your Leaffish to then add something else. And then you can only activate 1 Ghoti Chain per turn. I just like it because it's a good way to cheat out Enoch. And then Ghoti Cosmos has the effect of you can apply effects in sequence based on the number of banished fish monsters. 1 or more, your fish monsters cannot be destroyed by battle this turn. 4 or more, the activation and effects of fish monsters. Fish monster effects activated on your field cannot be negated this turn. Or 8 or more, special summon a fish synchro from your extra deck. This is treated as a synchro summon. And you can only activate 1 Ghoti Cosmos per turn. So I like this because if you have 8 or more banished fish monsters, then you can set this on your turn. Opponent, as soon as your opponent makes a decent board that you're afraid of, activate Ghoti Cosmos, summon Ghoti the Deep Beyond, banish everything in play. Because it was your opponent's turn. And then Ghoti Fury has the effect of you can target a fish monster you control and 1 monster your opponent controls. Banish both monsters until your next standby phase. And then if a fish monster or monsters are special summoned to your field while any card is banished, you can banish this card from your graveyard or face-up field to then have the ability to... Or you can banish this card from your hand or face-up spell and trap zone. All fish monsters you control get 100 attack for each currently banished card until the end phase. This is just something I'll use for like pushing for game, essentially. And then it can be recurred by Enoch. And I apologize for messing up wording. I'm just bad at reading sometimes. And by sometimes I mean a lot. And to finish off the main deck, I play 3 copies of Macrocosmos. Macrocosmos just has any cards into the graveyard is removed from play. This is essentially the trap version of Kashtira or Rise Heart, even though Rise Heart is the Xyz monster version of this. But it also has another effect that no one ever uses, because I don't think anyone actually will end up playing Helios the Primordial Sun. Although I have thought about playing 1 copy of it, just for laughs. Just like I thought about playing 3 copies of Grand Convergence to go with Macrocosmos, just because it can destroys all monsters in play and inflicts 300 damage while you control Macrocosmos. But like I said, that's it for the main deck. And oh yeah, the other card I would take out for a 3rd copy of like Sleepfish would be the 1 copy of Ghoti Fury. So it'll only be at 1 instead of... I'd honestly take out 1 Cosmos or 1 Fury, since both are searchable via Enoch. For the extra deck, I play 1 copy of Abyss Dweller. Abyss Dweller is just because a lot of friends that I have that play this game like their grave effects, and Abyss Dweller can turn off grave effects. as well as giving all your water monsters an additional 500 attack if it has a material attached to it that was originally water. Then I play 2 copies of Stealth Kraken Spawn. Stealth Kraken Spawn can only be summoned off of the effect of Stealth Kraken, or number 4 Stealth Kraken, and it has they have the effect of, during the main phase quick effect, you can destroy 1 water monster your opponent controls. And this card, summoned off the effect of Stealth Kraken, is destroyed and leaves the field. The thing has to be destroyed. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, if monster is destroyed, you can special summon you can special summon other Stealth Kraken monsters from your graveyard up to the number of materials this card had. Then you can attach up to 1 water monster from your graveyard to each of those special summon monsters as material. And then I also play 2 copies on number 4 Stealth Kraken, which is what summons Stealth Kraken Spawn, as it has the effect of all monsters on the field become water. During the main phase quick effect, you can activate its effect to then destroy 1 water monster your opponent controls and then burn them for half of the destroyed monster's attack on field. And if this Exceed summoned card is destroyed, you can special summon 1 Stealth Kraken Spawn for each material it had, and then attach 1 water monster from your graveyard to each one as material. And the best part of this card is that it is not a once per turn, or is a soft once per turn, and not a hard once per turn. So if you have multiple Stealth Krakens in play, you can use their effects multiple times. So like one thing I remember doing with this was I would summon it, use its effect, have it crash into something, have one of the spawns attack into something, summon back Stealth Kraken. Stealth Kraken would use its effect during main phase 2, and if my opponent would try to stop it with a monster effect, like I remember at one point they tried using Savage Dragon to negate the burn effect because they made Savage Dragon during the battle phase for some reason. And then I changed Stealth Kraken Spawn, which was able to destroy the Savage Dragon, which, since it couldn't give up a counter, couldn't negate the Stealth Kraken and then destroy and burn. Like, Stealth Kraken is just a fun card. As long as you can use it in a deck, it does require 2 level 4 water monsters. But I feel like if you're playing a water-based deck, Stealth Kraken should be an automatic, at least 2 of. Then I play 3 copies of Aerion Post, Serpent of the Ghoti. Serpent of the Ghoti has the effect of, if this card is special summoned, you can banish 1 level 6 or lower fish from your deck. And then if this card is sent to the graveyard as synchro material, you can target 1 fish monster in your graveyard, banish that target. Then you can add 1 fish monster with an equal or lower level from your deck to your hand. You can only use each effective Aerion Post Serpent of the Ghoti once per turn. Like I said, this is just used so that you can level climb into your copy of Iskon, the Bicorn Ghoti, Goglim, Spear of the Ghoti, White Aura Whale, or any of the 4 remaining. Which, White Aura Whale has the effect of when it's synchro summoned, you can destroy all, I believe it's attack position. You destroy all of your opponent's attack position monsters. It has piercing, gets 2 attacks on monsters during each battle phase. And this card you control is destroyed by an opponent's card effect, by battle, or is destroyed by an opponent's card, battle, or card effect. You can then, and sent to the graveyard. You can banish 1 other water monster from your graveyard, special summon it, and if you do, it becomes a level 8 token. Or tuner. Holy crap, that'd be the wrong wording. And then Goglim is also my favorite of the Ghoti monsters based off of its artwork alone. But Goglim has the effect of, at the start of the damage step, if this card battles an opponent's monster, you can banish that opponent's monster. During your opponent's standby phase, you can banish this card. Then, if the monsters used for its synchro summon of this card are all in the graveyard, you can special summon them, but banish them when they leave the field. And you can only use each effect of Goglim, Spear of the Ghoti once per turn. I just like it because of a non-target banish, so if my opponent has something like a Rise Dark Dragoon and they've already used negate, I can just have this attack into the Dragoon at the start of the damage step, banish it. And the Skull the Bicorn Ghoti has the effect of its synchro summon, you can target a fish monster you control and 1 card your opponent controls, banish both. And then if this card is banished, you can banish a fish monster from your hand or graveyard, I believe. Now, you just banish a fish monster from your graveyard, special summon this card, and you can use each effect of Escon, the Bicorn, ghoti once per turn. Then I also play 1 copy of Adamantipator Risen Dragite. The only effect that this card has that matters for this deck is that if your opponent activates a spell card or the effect of a spell, while you have a water monster in grave, you can negate that effect. Then I play 1 copy of ghoti of the Deep Beyond. This card has the effect of it gains 500 attack for each card removed from, or for each card that's currently banished. It gains 500 attack per banished card, so if there's 5 banished cards, it has 2,500 attack, which usually does a whole lot more than that. But if it's synchro summoned during your opponent's turn, you can banish all cards on the field, and then during your standby phase of the turn after this card is banished from the monster zone, you can special summon this banished card. So this is pretty much one of your best options to use against your opponent on their main phase, as long as you can actually summon it. And then it's also a really big beat stick for being able to beat over opponent's monsters. And then, speaking of beat sticks, I also play 1 copy of Sword Soul Supreme Sovereign Changing. Changing has the effect of your opponent this monster gains 100 attack for each banished card, I believe. Yeah, for each banished card, it gains 100 attack and defense, and your opponent's monsters lose 100 attack and defense. And then if a card is banished, you can activate this card's effect to banish a card from your opponent's graveyard and field. And you can only use each effect of Sword Soul Supreme Sovereign Changing once per turn. And the last monster I play is 1 copy of Ice Jade Jameer Ajiren, I think it's pronounced. But as the effect of, you can activate this quick effect, you can activate this effect so that face of monsters you control cannot be destroyed or banished by opponent's card effects. This turn, then if you activate this effect in response to your opponent's card or effect activation, and your opponent has a card or cards with that name on the field and or graveyard, banish those cards. If this card is banished by an opponent's card effect, if a card or cards is banished by an opponent's card effect while this card is in your graveyard, you can special summon this card, and you can only use each effect of this card's name once per turn. I just like this because it's a decent option for use against something like Kashtira. But it also has the effect, if it's banished, that it can just summon itself back, which this deck does a lot of. So it's not going to be that hard to banish it. But that's it for my deck profile. The only other things I plan on adding at some point is 3 copies of at least 2 copies of Moray of Avarice. Just because you can banish a fish, draw 2 cards. So you can banish, if you know you're not going to be able to beat your opponent that turn, you can just banish your ghoti of the Deep Beyond, draw 2, and then during the next standby phase, ghoti of the Deep Beyond comes back. Which I don't know what I would take out for those, but I do know I would play them in my Mutant deck. But that's it for my ghoti deck profile. If you have any ideas what I can do to improve the deck, any decks like to be made in the future, or decks like to see face each other, feel free to comment down below. Thanks for watching.